Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. In a prior episode, I spoke about the diet break before going into a diet because sometimes fat loss phase isn't the starting point. If you're looking for information, usually because you're not where you want to be, there's already enough information out there. Many women I find are really terrified to increase their calories when they're not yet at their goals. This is kind of a double-edged sword because when you actually start a fat loss phase or when you start leaning out, losing weight, you kind of get caught up in the dopamine and it feels really good. And sometimes you want to speed it up. Sometimes you want to try to push harder into it and want to keep going. You end up being a lot more self-critical as well because you are so focused on your body. That's what dieting does, especially if you haven't set it up right and you don't have these other things to focus on to make it more effective, to offset metabolic adaptation. But that's where a lot of people get caught and they adapt way too hard, way too fast. Because they still have all this fat to lose, they just end up in a really stuck place. Not being at the end goal yet, not being lean enough yet, not being at where you wanted to be before you stop dieting, but being stubborn to get to this end goal weight or losing X kilos or looking a certain way, for many people is the fast track to ending up worse, to failure, to a whole heap of even psychological stresses and issues and consequences. But this part is so important because your fear of people who take breaks feel like it's saying they're not disciplined enough, can't go hard enough, they can't stick to it, they're lazy, they're too soft, being too easy on themselves. There are so many things that we can tell ourselves. Most of the women that I work with and most of the women that I speak to are high achievers. They're people that work really hard. They love working hard. They love achieving. They have high standards on themselves, but there comes a point where those high standards and that mindset of achieving is to your detriment. If I eat more, I'll lose everything I've worked for. I'm not lean enough. I haven't earned it yet. Discipline isn't about pushing through when it's time to pull back. Sometimes the greatest discipline that you can have is knowing when to pull back so that you can go further. And I think this kind of applies to everything because discipline and self-compassion as well is just as much as whipping your butt and saying, no, do the thing you know you need to do and stop going back to the same cycle that you know doesn't get you there. There are so many cases and signs of needing a diet break. It all depends on where you start and where you are now. Aside from the biofeedback, depending on whether you started it outright or not, you would probably notice nothing's happening anymore and you have to do heaps and heaps and heaps if you haven't set your metabolism up to be more resilient and robust to adapting because it should not adapt that fast. Even literature shows that your metabolism doesn't adapt more than 60 calories on average a day. It's what you're doing and what you're not doing. This is why building up such a solid training capacity, learning how to train so you can train with fierce strength, have the volume, being able to do enough to keep getting stronger for at least part of your diet phase. You can still get stronger in a diet. It doesn't mean you're building muscle, but it's showing that you're at least keeping it because deficit phases, you're more likely to lose muscle and you want to do everything in your highest power to keep it. I'm going to address all of your fears in this as well. I want to first talk about the signs of needing a diet break. And you probably won't even have the signs physically if you are someone who wants to keep trying to push through. If your life has a lot going on, if there's any chaos, any stress in your life, it doesn't have to be a dieting stress and it doesn't have to be a training stress. Not being able to sleep properly increases your chances of muscle loss versus fat loss. It also slows down your ability to lose fat and it impacts a lot of what's going on metabolically and hormonally because of the hormones that are then impacted from chronic low sleep. If your stress is really high, we know that cortisol, high cortisol that you can't recover from. And that's typically where people find themselves gaining fat in a deficit. You're still on the deficit calories, but they end up not really being deficit calories. They end up being more of accidental maintenance, which is something that I find a lot of women in. They're in accidental maintenance. So many women can eat so many more calories. It's just that they're in accidental maintenance already. And that doesn't mean you need to eat a lot of food every single day. It means there are days that take you into accidental maintenance. Your metabolism isn't all about the calories you take in. There are metabolic processes that impact what is actually being taken in, which if you're in chronic stress, you're not going to be able to absorb the protein and the nutrients for an optimized system. So your gut health needs to be there. And your gut health has a lot to do with your stress. Also, what we are expending. If we have been in low calorie lifestyles, then our body isn't going to want to waste calories. If your nutrition is sporadic, you don't really have a structure every single day, the body doesn't know what the fuck it's doing. So what do you think it's going to adapt to? It's going to adapt to the least amount of calories that you're giving it because it doesn't have anything consistent, which is why you find people on like 1,200 to 1,400 calorie diets that are not shaping up. They're not losing fat. They're not building muscle because of the sporadic nutrition. They aren't in a place to be building muscle, hovering between not eating enough to give themselves the progress that they want. And this is why diet breaks are so important. You actually need to know when to use your diet breaks as well, because if you're going to treat diet breaks as your only fat loss strategy, as in you're not spending long enough, at least a year in maintenance, 2 years focused on building, then you're going to be in a place where you're not really giving your body any chance to build muscle before you slash your calories and go back to losing muscle again if you're not keeping it. So are you really giving yourself any chance to build? And this is why it is so important to have structure to everything that you do. Now, I covered life stress. If your training performance is dropping more than it should be, which it should not drop in the first month, that's usually a psychology thing. Anytime that you are in a deficit, you're not building muscle, the less time we can spend in that fat loss phase, the better. If you find yourself getting hungrier than you can handle, take a diet break. Stop trying to force it through. You're going to accumulate diet fatigue. You're going to make it harder to get back in and keep losing the fat you want to lose. And if you do have quite a lot of fat to lose, a lot of people say, don't do diet breaks because you can just keep losing the fat. Well, it's like, yeah, okay, but that's just like saying I have to sprint a marathon. I know that I have to put in all of this tedious work for how long? And that's why people don't get results, because they unintentionally and unknowingly sabotage themselves. Your cravings start to rise. Your weekends get messy. You get sloppy with your nutrition without even realizing it. You completely lose grip of everything. So then when you come out in maintenance, your nutrition is a wreck. This is an issue that I've seen with so many women, sadly, is that if they're not in a diet, they don't have structure to their nutrition. They find it hard to get their shit together because they've only ever mastered dieting. They've never learned to fuel, never learned maintenance. A lot of you know how to diet, you know how to track your food of some sort, you know how to eat a salad, you know how to do the basic fundamentals, but you don't know how to do it for long enough to get the fat off and then keep it off and then keep progressing your body composition. That's the part that you're frustrated with anyway. Any of you don't trust yourself to go to maintenance yet. You don't trust yourself because it either feels like you're letting go, you're going to gain fat, or you're going to lose it all, but it's not serving you with where you are right now. Maintenance is the end goal. You can visit surplus sometimes. You can visit deficit sometimes. You don't just go into a surplus either. Like, diets and surpluses are to be earned. Just like I wouldn't put someone into a surplus phase if they're not sleeping properly, if their recovery is not there, if they're not able to train effectively. Surpluses are there to provide extra fuel for you to get your training in effectively. Training 3 to 4 times a week, doing your conditioning work, if there's any conditioning work there. I see zone 2 as something extremely beneficial, but I don't see it as mandatory if you're getting in your steps and you're doing the other basic things to keep you healthy. But you can't optimize anything when you're always waiting for the next fat loss phase, when you're always just wanting to be your absolute leanest self, because diet breaks are not you just adding another apple or another cracker. They're you getting your ass right back up to maintenance, as you should after a diet. But most people that struggle with the concept of eating more struggle to boost their calories up to where they should be in a diet break and never truly give their metabolism and hormones and body a chance of reprieve. They don't give their brains a chance of reprieve because the mental fatigue is real. Don't push it beyond what you should. Even if you feel like you got a little bit more in you, we can do that next time. You might feel like you have more in you and you want to wring it out. It's kind of like when you're running a race and you're running at a pretty fast pace and you realize, okay, I need to slow down so I can maintain my energy. But it's like, oh no, I'll just run faster for a little bit longer and then I'll slow down. So you do that. And then it's like, oh my God, I'm gaining ground. Then you do a little bit more. Then and before you know it, you're burnt. You're fatigued. You get a cramp. So now you're way slower. You still have this cramp. You can't shake this cramp. And you end up coming dead last. That's exactly what it's like trying to push through a diet when you should have pulled out. You don't have to earn it. You don't get lean enough, and you don't have to hit a certain number on the scale. That's what I always thought, and that is what held me back. And I didn't even know it. It was fueling myself for long enough and shifting my focus that actually got me the body that I wanted. It's what actually made me feel really confident in my body. I had this realization the other day because I was trying to explain it to one of my clients. I thought that I didn't have any thoughts of it. Actually, I did. I'm sure I did, because I was like, holy crap, I'm actually weighing this much. I'm really chunky. I see it. I saw it, but I didn't care. I felt, I don't know. It's like I was loving the fact that I was eating the food and training and feeling strong. I could see that I had my quads popping, and I had, like, I didn't, by quads popping, I meant shape. I didn't have definition. And this is the power of taking a long time away from dieting, then lockdowns, and then I lost muscle. And in losing muscle, I didn't know what I had until I lost it. That's kind of what I want to build back again. And I know that I need to go back into that surplus phase. Anyway, that's the thing, like, life's always going to happen. And sometimes it can throw us off many times over. And that's why you need to realize that this is playing a long game. You want to keep this. And it was only because of the habits that I built before it that allowed me to push through this. And this is why diet breaks are important here. So many women are so afraid of eating more calories. Diet breaks are a planned break away from the deficit. There have been studies that have shown many results in more fat mass lost while more lean mass is maintained. Why? Because they're able to keep pushing that performance. They're able to get the diet breaks that is needed to allow them to restore, to refuel, to improve their training, to reset their hunger hormones and go back in stronger. They ended up losing similar amounts of weight. It's just that one group lasted a lot longer through it. They were able to lose a lot more fat mass long term, look way leaner long term, because they ended up losing more fat mass than the other group, way more fat mass than the other group. It's just that the overall mass was similar because the other group also lost a lot more muscle mass. When you have these strategic breaks, it allows you to come back at it with a lot more force, a lot more energy, and your training can stay improving, feeling better. You won't feel beat down all the time. If you have any niggles, which a lot of people who are over 45 end up getting more niggles than usual because our bodies don't recover and like heal themselves to the same capacity. That's when understanding that spending less time on low calories and in high periods of stress coming from your training, your lifestyle, all this kind of stuff, that's when you start to appreciate your body feeling better and functioning better. Don't try to push it harder. And it also allows you to not get to a place where food is your sole focus, because that becomes a spirally slope as well. So I hope that helps. This is like the whole point of this was me to try to encourage you guys that you don't need to get to X on a time frame or X on the scales to get to a place where you finally earned more calories. So if you're eating 500 calories or 600 calories or trying to do a tiny little deficit because you can't seem to push all the way through and get any further, it's about time to stop dieting and start actually fueling your maintenance to build. And then when you listen to my other episode on this, and then when you're in a place to put yourself into a deficit again, do so. That's if you have more fat to lose. But if you're someone who wants to build lean and you're in a place where you're not seeing the shape that you want, where you've been trying and trying, you've lost weight, but you've not done it in a way that has got you the lean results that you want, that's when you need to realize that it's not a diet break, but a maintenance phase that you need. So knowing the difference between a diet break and a maintenance phase is crucial. Eating at maintenance for a diet break or for a maintenance phase isn't giving up. It's the only way to get the body that you want, because you're never going to get there in one fat loss phase. Your body doesn't work that way. You've been sold the belief that you need to calorie deficit until you hit your goal. That progress is how fast you can lose weight or how successful you are in your fat loss phase to get to the end goal. But it's not done in one fat loss phase. You can't diet your way to your end goal. You can't diet your way to lean. It just requires different things for different people. Is it a diet break, or is it longer maintenance phases, or is it actually setting up your fat loss phase so you can lose weight lose fat the way that it's intended, a way that actually improves your physique, your health profile, your metabolic profile, and not one that worsens it. The longer you diet, the more resistant your body becomes. Your body is always going to try and survive. Dieting harder doesn't get you further. It gets you more stuck. So you need to set yourself up for long-term success. And everything that you do, ask yourself, is this setting myself up, my future self up? Or am I stealing out of my investment account to pay for frivolous things now? Invest more, impulse buy less. That is how my strongest, leanest clients win. Not by pushing through, but by knowing when to pull back. That is what true discipline is. Allowing yourself to do that. Not, I earned this. I'm going to earn this. We don't earn calorie ranges, and carbs aren't something to fear. Yes, they'll make you feel bigger because they hold more water, but you can't deficit your way to definition. The scale is never the issue here. It's your perspective, because you can lose weight all that you want, but you will not see the results that you want if you don't do it the right way, if you can only measure progress by the scale, and if you're scared to even see that thing tick up. Fat loss plateaus are not a sign that you need to go harder, you need to slash more calories, you need to do more, do more, do more. Sometimes it does mean you need to refine your approach and make sure that you're doing everything consistently. But the belief that if you're on 1,200 or 1,400 calories and your metabolism has adapted the whole way and you need to keep going lower and doing more, that's bullshit. That's been debunked, and that is what I said before. Metabolism does not adapt like that. Your behaviors have just changed, or you've done something not aligned with what lean habits are, because lean habits are not weight loss habits. Weight loss habits have you stuck. Lean habits have you improving. So I hope that helps. I really hope that does. And if there's anything else, please reach out to me so I can help you. If you've been stuck in this mental loop of wanting to get results and keep them, but never really getting there, and then finding yourself yo-yoing and up and down on the scale and up and down in your body, not really heading anywhere specific, not really improving in your training, but also not really seeing fat loss results either. Don't let yourself waste more time doing that. It freaking sucks. Like, it honestly does. You deserve to get results for the effort you're putting in. The worst fate is to realize years later that you were working so hard only to still be in the same place, thinking that working harder is going to get you there, or just trying to force a faulty system to suddenly start working. So I hope that helps. Just take with you, what does progress truly mean to you? What do you want by the end of this? Where do you want your 50-year-old self to be? How do you want perimenopause to be? How do you want postmenopause to be? Do you see yourself staying stuck in the same cycle for years to come until you're old and you now have the least capability to build muscle and to get the results that you want? Or do you want to set yourself up now and be okay to push through the discomfort of what we've been sold? I hope this helps once again, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. If this helps in any way, please give me a 5-star rating, and it will mean the world to me. Thank you.